Gao Pinxi never imagined that he, a leader in the domineering CEO era, would actually go on a blind date. The target is still the most famous beautiful professor. She combines beauty, intelligence, and family background, making her the perfect marriage partner. 3 years ago, her love story with top-tier idols went viral, and despite everything she did for love, she eventually went to another land. 3 years later, when she returned to her home country, she actually started blind dates and chose herself as her partner. He is full of curiosity and also full of confidence. But during the blind date, she even came up with a contract and was interested in his fickle nature. Is she not afraid to fall in love with herself? He felt insulted. So, accept her love contract. Chapter 1. Surprisingly, she will go on a blind date. You are listening at novelfull.audio. In the golden autumn of October, the sunshine is just right, and the tree shadows are swaying, shattering the ground into golden yellow. Just like Xianwan's mood at this moment, it makes people overjoyed. Yi Yisin lazily leaned on the sofa, browsing the school forum. Today's lecture was consistently well received, but it also continued to discuss her attire. Although she is used to it, she still stubbornly hopes that one day her lectures will receive more attention than she herself. Yi Yisin. Xianwan saw that Lu Yi was still holding her iPad and couldn't help but feel angry. Since Yi Yisin agreed to the blind date, Xianwan started helping her buy her luggage. Mom's eyes are the best. Yi Yisin quickly hugged Xianwan and clicked on a post praising Yi Yisin's clothing matching. Mom, you see, the forum is discussing my clothing matching, and seeking the same style has surpassed my teaching. Yi Yisin pretended to be jealous, learning from Xianwan's angry appearance. Xianwan looked at the praised comments on the forum and proudly said, "Of course. Your mother and I are excellent designers who have been covered up." "No, Yi Yisin. Is it your blind date or mine? Come and choose the clothes quickly." Yi Yisin couldn't escape and could only obediently follow the instructions. Yi Yisin looked helplessly at the clothes and jewelry arranged in various corners of the bed and sofa, even to the point of being meticulous enough to make a ring. It's just a blind date, as for what? Yi Yisin chose the simplest and most appropriate one, wearing a lotus pink slim-fitting dress. Mom has such good taste, she said, or just a few procedural flatteries from Xianwan. Looking at her mother's satisfied expression, if she knew Yi Yisin's plan at the moment, she would probably faint with anger. Yi Yisin lowered her head a bit ashamed. Forget it, wasn't it just to make her happy? When soldiers come and generals stop, when water comes and earth hides, we can make plans after being found, not to mention whether Gao Pinxi will agree. How to speak up? Thinking about Yi Yisin, she couldn't help feeling a little flustered, and her eyebrows furrowed unconsciously. Xianwan thought that Yi Yisin was nervous about blind dates and tentatively asked, "Why don't Mom accompany you?" "Of course not." Yi Yisin was frightened by Xianwan's proposal. If Xianwan went, how could she negotiate with Gao Pinxi? "Mom, you're so beautiful. If we go together, Mr. Gao will definitely take a liking to you, right? When we come back, I will describe everything to you like a movie." Gao Pinxi and Yi Yisin nodded and gestured to their earphones, indicating that it must be an important phone call. Yi Yisin sat down on the nearby sofa and looked around to see the Gao family's commercial empire. Before choosing him, Yi Yisin asked Angel for information and consulted his relevant materials. Gao Pinxi put down the materials in his hand and said, "Sorry for keeping you waiting. If it's my class, I'll make you wait too, so there's nothing to mind." Yi Yisin smiled and said, "First time meeting, please give me more guidance." Yumin tried every means to find a wife for him, but he refused all his previous dates. However, when he found out that the blind date was her, he agreed out of curiosity. He never imagined that she would also go on a blind date. And she actually forgot about him. First time meeting. Gao Pinxi's deep brown eyes met Yi Yisin. Yi Yisin lowered her gaze helplessly, listening to his tone. Have they ever met before? Yi Eason searched for memories in her mind, still unable to recall when and where she had met Gao Pinxi. Gao Pinxi no longer teased her, first time meeting, please give me more guidance. Chapter 2. Observing his playful nature. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. First time meeting, please give me more guidance. I am most afraid of the sudden quietness of the air. Gao Pinxi, who has always been good at talking, didn't know how to start the topic for a while. Yi Eason didn't know how to speak when she saw Gao Pinxi. You can't tell the plan in front of the waiter, can you? Let's wait until we finish our meal. After the two finished their dinner, Yi Eason opened the door and said straightforwardly, Mr. Gao, I don't want to go around the bush anymore. I want to make a love contract with you. Gao Pinxi was stunned. Love contract. With oneself. Yi Eason looked at Gao Pinxi's surprised expression and quickly explained, Mr. Gao, I don't want to be in love, but my mother introduces me to blind dates every day. I want to say that you also don't want to be bound in a romantic relationship, so we can say that both parties have false love intentions and can sign a love contract. You can continue to date other girls, and I can also deal with my mother. It's just that I need to act on a show every weekend or 2 weeks. I wonder if Mr. Gao is interested. Wait, why did you choose me? Gao Pinxi became more and more puzzled as he listened. I have no intention of falling in love, nor do you have the heart to cling to one person. You are the best partner for me, but I don't know if Mr. Gao is willing to enter into a contract. Yi Eason mustered up the courage to express her inner thoughts. Will he agree? To be honest, she is still a bit uneasy. Gao Pinxi was stunned and dumbfounded. Are you so confident that you won't fall in love with me? Gao Pinxi frowned and asked. No, Yi Eason said firmly. What should you do if you fall in love with me? Gao Pinxi was a bit unconvinced. Although his premise for dating was not to establish a relationship, when a girl made a contract with him and firmly believed that she would not fall in love with him, his desire for victory overcame his rationality. If you fall in love, it ends, Yi Eason said with a smile, as if talking about a fantasy. Are you not afraid that I will fall in love with you? Gao Pinxi looked at Yi Eason with deep affection. This was something Yi Eason didn't expect, but when she remembered Jean Chier's introduction, she understood that he was joking. Mr. Gao, don't laugh anymore. Mr. Gao's girlfriend doesn't have anyone over 3 months old, isn't your famous quote taken from each other? Yi Eason raised her lips and looked straight at Gao Pinxi. Ah. Gao Pinxi never expected that one day he would be silenced by his famous quote. Yi Eason remembered Jean Chier's description of Gao Pinxi. Handsome, steady, and briefly focused. So, are you interested in my flower heart? Gao Pinxi asked helplessly, his deep eyes filled with confusion. You can say that, Yi Eason replied seriously. But I don't lack a girlfriend, why would I agree to you? Gao Pinxi thought to himself, genius's way of thinking is really incomprehensible. Why does he think he also needs a contracted girlfriend? Even if he doesn't love, why make a contract? If he needs a girlfriend, why don't he just go find it himself? Yi Eason didn't think too much, but her meticulous logic kept thinking in her mind. She replied, it's because you don't lack a girlfriend, so you need a girlfriend on the surface. Isn't it because you also need a blind date? Gao Pinxi looked at Yi Eason, who was like a mystery, beautiful and generous yet mysterious and interesting. Although he found it absurd, he couldn't help but explore it and blurted out, okay. This is a contract. Yi Eason immediately took out a piece of paper from her bag. Chapter 3. Contract Formation. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Gao Pinxi's soared eyebrows furrowed slightly. He didn't expect that Yi Eason had already prepared all the contracts, it seemed that she had come prepared. Gao Pinxi browsed through the contract terms. Love contract party, Yi Eason party B, Gao Pinxi, both Party A and Party B, based on their unwillingness to fall in love and the need for a romantic appearance, have reached a mutual agreement through consultation and voluntarily entered into this love contract. Regarding the matter of the love contract, the following agreement has been reached. 1. Subject: date twice a month. If a family gathering is necessary, notify the other party 1 week in advance. Both parties can unconditionally refuse. Love standard: possessing the appearance of an objective third party believing that two people are in love. 2. Deadline: both parties may terminate this contract at any time within 1 year from the date of signing, with only 1 hour's prior notice to the other party, and shall assist the other party in completing the appearance of the breakup. 3. Rights and obligations of Party A. 1, 2, 3, 4. Obligations of Party B. 1. The second party shall accompany the first party to attend the end-of-month family dinner and play the role of a good boyfriend every month. 2. The second party shall assist the first party in purchasing romantic items, the cost shall be borne by the first party. 3. The second party and the first party shall pretend to have a date once a month and leave photos to prevent elders from viewing. 5. Agreement amendment or termination: both parties can unconditionally terminate this agreement. Gao Pinxi lost the momentum of galloping the mall for a moment. Why sign this invalid contract? And each clause has no substantive content. This contract is only for reference. I think we need to reach an agreement on some basic matters of pretending to be in love, Yi Yisin patiently explained. In my opinion, these terms are not enforceable, said Gao Pinxi, placing the contract on the table and examining Yi Yisin. Mr. Gao, why did you agree to a blind date? Yi Yisin decided to persuade Gao Pinxi with her rigorous logic. Curious, Gao Pinxi replied directly, looking at Yi Yisin's confident expression and wanting to know how she convinced herself. Since Aunt Yu began to arrange blind dates for you, there should have been many blind dates. Why did she choose me? Yi Yisin planned to use a rhetorical strategy to make the other person express her true thoughts. Curiosity. Gao Pinxi responded to all changes with a constant attitude, waiting for her to continue asking questions. Gao Pinxi relaxed and leaned against the sofa, watching Yi Yisin. Did Mr. Gao just agree to enter into a love contract with me? Yi Yisin knew that the previous strategy had failed, so she could only appeal to emotions and reason. Yes, Gao Pinxi couldn't help but feel delighted as he watched Yi Yisin change her strategy. Sure enough, going on a blind date with her was indeed very interesting. Since I have made an offer and Mr. Gao has also made a commitment, our contract has already been established and taken effect. Mr. Gao is not trying to renege, is he? Yi Yisin gradually gained the upper hand. Not right. Gao Pinxi pressed his hand against his chin, pretending to be thinking, love relationships are not protected by law. Our contract is not established. Love relationships are not protected by law, but contracts are protected by law. Besides, Mr. Gao, look at this. Yi Yisin picked up the contract and sat on the sofa next to Gao Pinxi. The contract states that both parties can terminate it at any time, and it has no binding force on Mr. Gao. Since there is no binding force, why should this contract be made? Gao Pinxi felt that Yi Yisin was like a mystery, and his curiosity constantly made him want to explore the answer. Writing down the requirements of both parties clearly can directly determine the other party's obligation to cooperate. Acting also requires a script, isn't it? This contract can be changed and supplemented at any time. Just write down Mr. Gao's requirements. I will try my best to cooperate. Yi Yisin knew that Gao Pinxi had agreed, and her heart finally settled. Finally, there was no need to constantly face Xin Wan's nagging, and Yi Yisin breathed a sigh of relief. Chapter 4, Let Me Teach You How to Fall in Love. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gao Pinxi skillfully wrote the supplementary content on the contract with ease. Yi Yisin looked at his words with a powerful and imposing aura, just like him. The contract was completely changed by Gao Pinxi, and Yi Yisin couldn't help but frown and pout. This was already a new offer. Gao Pinxi finally stopped writing and handed the contract to Yi Yisin. Do you need to make any modifications? Love contract Party A, Yi Yisin, changed to Gao Pinxi. Party B, Gao Pinxi, changed to Yi Yisin. Through friendly consultation, Party A and Party B, in the spirit of not wanting to fall in love and having a need for a romantic appearance, have reached a mutual agreement and voluntarily entered into this love contract. Regarding the matter of the love contract, the following agreement has been reached. 1. Subject changed to date twice a month. If a family gathering is necessary, notify the other party in advance by changing from 1 week to 1 day. Both parties can unconditionally refuse. Delete love standard. An objective third person believes that two people are in love on the surface. 2. Deadline. Both parties may terminate this contract at any time within 1 year from the date of signing, with only 1 hour's prior notice to the other party, and shall assist the other party in completing the appearance of the breakup. 3. Rights and obligations of Party A1. The first party shall accompany the first party to attend the end-of-month family dinner and play the role of a good boyfriend every month. 2. The first party shall assist the first party in purchasing romantic items. The cost shall be borne by Party A, shall be changed to all expenses during the contract period shall be borne by Party A. 3. Party A and Party B shall pretend to have a date once a month and leave photos to prevent elders from viewing. 4. Obligations of Party B. The second party shall engage in love according to the requirements of the first party. 5. Agreement amendment or termination. Both parties can unconditionally terminate this agreement. What are the specific requirements of Party A? Yi Yisin can't even play the role of girlfriend without a script. How can she play the role well? Improvisation. I enjoy watching you play freely. Gao Pinxi lazily leaned on the sofa, and Yi Yisin aroused his curiosity. She was indeed a different woman. Although this negotiation was something he had never anticipated, he had to play the role of boyfriend well before he lost interest in her. Yi Yisin stood up and smiled lightly. That's a pleasant cooperation. Gao Pinxi held Yi Yisin's hand and said, happy cooperation. Yi Yisin is a bit flustered, as she is in her 30s and has some gaps in love. During the more than half year of our relationship with Yin Junlei, 3/4 of the time was spent waiting for him, and we could count the time we met. But she experienced all the sweetness and bitterness of love through these 6 months of memories. Gao Pinxi watched as Yi Yisin fell into contemplation, her eyes filled with desolation. Does he remind her of painful memories? Mr. Gao? Yi Yisin asked cautiously, perhaps it was my rudeness. He actually doesn't need to cooperate with himself in acting, even if it's a love contract, he still needs you to be willing. When Yi Yisin lifted her eyes, she noticed that Gao Pinxi was only 1 step away from her. She bent down to look at her, panicked and retreated, unstable. As she fell backwards, Gao Pinxi stopped and hugged her. First of all, you have to call me Pinxi, Gao Pinxi said seriously. Secondly, change the nickname in the phone note. Yi Yisin had intended to give up, but never expected that Gao Pinxi had already begun to fulfill the contract. Yi Yisin looked at Gao Pinxi and said gently, my contracted girlfriend, let me teach you how to love. Chapter 5. First date tomorrow. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As soon as Yi Yisin arrived home, she saw Xin sitting in the living room waiting. How's it going? Xin was eager to inquire about the blind date situation before Yi Yisin could sit down. Not bad. Yi Yisin remembered this incredible experience. She seemed to have become a student now, and he even said he wanted to teach her how to love. She doesn't know, but she doesn't want to. However, indeed, compared to him, she is relatively inexperienced. What does it mean to be okay? Didn't it mean we had to introduce everything like a movie? Xin was obviously dissatisfied with Yi Yisin's simple answer. Gao Pinxi said we'll make an appointment next weekend. Yi Yisin remembered Gao Pinxi saying the first thing, remember to change your address. Pinxi. Xin couldn't help but smile. She quickly became familiar with changing her name, which seemed very dramatic. I'm so tired. I still have morning classes tomorrow. Turning around and returning to the room. Afraid of being exposed by Xin's questioning. Yi Yisin reminisced about everything at night, tired and simply washed herself before lying in bed. As usual, searching for information about Yin Junlei, the light group returned for the 10th time, and Yin Junlei tried new styles and wrote lyrics and music for the first time. Yi Yisin looked at Yin Junlei's increasingly mature face, and memories surged in her heart. Perhaps, separation is the best choice. Nail, Gao Pinxi's text message interrupted Yi Yisin's thoughts. Your WeChat account. Yi Yisin realized that WeChat settings do not allow others to search through their phone numbers. As a contracted boyfriend and girlfriend, adding WeChat is also one of the necessary things to do. Yi Yisin added Gao Pinxi's WeChat account through his phone number. Gao Pinxi immediately passed, and Yi Yisin clicked into Gao Pinxi's circle of friends, just like his aloof demeanor, empty, with only a few shares sharing news about the Gao group. Yi Yisin placed WeChat in the background and continued to browse Yin Junlei's messages. Let's have dinner together tomorrow night. Gao Pinxi sent a WeChat message to Yi Yisin. Mr. Gao, Yi Yisin realized she had called him the wrong name, but she still felt uncomfortable calling him Pinxi. She immediately changed the edited content to, you're busy, don't have to put too much effort into this contract. Just go on 2 dates a month. Although they are contractual boyfriends, they only met once. Tomorrow's first date is a period that cannot be refuted. Yi Yisin let out a soft sigh. What's up with you? Yi Yisin wanted to answer that there were classes, but remembered that her homework schedule had already been posted on the forum by the students. Although Yi Yisin felt that Gao Pinxi wouldn't be so bored checking her messages on the school forum, after all, it was she who proposed the love contract, and her constant refusal to cooperate was unreasonable. She could only reply, okay. Yi Yisin looked at the page where the other party was typing, and Gao Pinxi replied, see you tomorrow. The next day. Xin placed the sandwich on Yi Yisin's plate and said, Yisin, come pick me up after work this afternoon. Let's go see your sister together. Xin's friend sent some high-quality bird's nest to his eldest daughter. Mom, I have a date tonight. Yi Yisin looked at today's PowerPoint while eating. She used to go through the content of the lecture in the morning. Appointment. Xin smelled the scent of love, and it seemed that Yisin and Gao Pinxi's blind date was very successful. On the first day of the blind date, did they start dating the next day? Xin picked up her phone to check Yi Yisin's homework schedule. The last class ended at 5:10 p.m., and a small thought came to her mind. Chapter 6. Are we performing idol drama? You are listening at Novel Full.audio. At the end of the day's class, Yi Yisin drove to the agreed location. Yi Yisin saw the familiar sports car in the rearview mirror, and indeed, Xin wanted to observe her first date. Forget it, it was originally intended for Xin to watch the play. If the audience doesn't see it, how will the opening be? Yi Yisin reported to Gao Pinxi on WeChat during the parking gap, there are spectators. Understood. Yi Yisin looked at Gao Pinxi's messages, always so concise and clear. There's more than one audience. Yi Yisin and Gao Pinxi are in the corner near the front of the French window, while Xin is wearing a hat and mask, sitting with her back to Yi Yisin. The huge violet brim, it is hard not to notice her. Yi Yisin looked around, and Yumin was also sitting 2 or 3 tables away from them wearing a hat and mask. She even chose to sit in the same row as Gao Pinxi to avoid being discovered. This should be another audience. A romantic dinner, a handsome partner, and dazzling fireworks, their first date met all the fantasies of a girl. Miss Yi, your flower. When Yi Yisin saw 90.9 roses, she looked at Gao Pinxi with confusion, but caught a glimpse of Yumin observing herself, smelling the scent of roses and showing a standard smile. Thank you. Yi Yisin gently placed the rose on the nearby chair and secretly asked, Are you so good at pleasing girls? I'm trying to please you, Gao Pinxi said seriously. Yi Yisin couldn't distinguish whether Gao Pinxi was acting or serious for a moment, and in an instant, she convinced herself because she had two audiences and Gao Pinxi's acting skills were superb. Yi Yisin lost her composure and the knife and fork in her hand fell off, sliding the steak onto her inner lap. The people around looked at Yi Yisin when they heard the sound. Gao Pinxi put a suit on Yi Yisin and said, Come to my office and change clothes. As they spoke, they held Yi Yisin in their arms and left the restaurant together. Yi Yisin wanted to dodge, but Gao Pinxi protected her even closer. Yi Yisin pressed against Gao Pinxi's chest, so close that one could hear his heartbeat. Feeling Yi Yisin's resistance, Gao Pinxi looked down at her and murmured in a voice that only the two of them could hear, There's an audience. Yi Yisin instinctively glanced at Yumin, who was staring at her. Yi Yisin turned back slightly, and in the remaining light, she saw that Xin Wan was also looking at them. Yi Yisin no longer resisted, but walked out of the restaurant under the care of Gao Pinxi and took the CEO's private elevator to Gao Pinxi's office. As your contracted girlfriend, I feel like we're all acting in an idol drama, Yi Yisin said as she went to change her sportswear. Idol dramas. Gao Pinxi looked at Yi Yisin's back, she was the most different girl he had ever seen. Whether it was his first encounter on the plane or the contract he proposed during a blind date, he felt for the first time that he was not the one controlling the process. Gao Pinxi is accustomed to being the dominant figure in relationships, but due to curiosity, he enters into a false contractual love. During these past few days, Gao Pinxi sometimes wondered why he had to agree to her request. Just because of curiosity? No, because of competitiveness. Because Yi Yisin firmly believed that she would not fall in love with his sense of defeat. Gao Pinxi never imagined that a girl would fall in love with his playboy and firmly believed that she would not fall in love with him. He arranged the perfect date for today, but found her uncomfortable and absent-minded. She doesn't love him, he knows very well. Whether she will fall in love with him, to be honest, he is not sure. Gao Pinxi takes Yi Yisin's hand to the French window, the fireworks show has begun. Yi Yisin watched the fireworks in the sky, immersed in the brilliance of the sky. Yi Yisin looked up at Gao Pinxi, with a three-dimensional silhouette, a tall nose, and deep eyes, like a prince casting a princess-like dream for a girl in a fairy tale kingdom. Gao Pinxi's spare time saw Yi Yisin looking at him, looking down at her with 4 eyes. Yi Yisin smiled and thanked her, immersing herself once again in the world of fireworks. Chapter 7. You Are My Little Star. You are listening at novelfull.audio. When Gao Pinxi escorted Yi Yisin home, it was already past 10 o'clock when Yi Yisin fell asleep in the car. Gao Pinxi slowly stopped the car and looked at Yi Yisin beside her. Her scattered hair slightly covered her tightly closed eyes, and her thick eyelashes cast shadows on her fair skin, just like the noble and cold beauty of a sleeping Venus. Yi Yisin moved slightly due to her uncomfortable posture, and Gao Pinxi looked ahead like a young man whose mind had been exposed. Gao Pinxi waited for a few seconds, perhaps even longer, and carefully turned his head to look at Yi Yisin. Fortunately, the people around him did not wake up, so he tentatively looked at Yi Yisin and panicked for a moment. Yi Yisin frowned slightly and pressed her thumb against the edge of her nose. She slowly opened her eyes and couldn't help but widen them. When did you get home? Yi Yisin turned around and looked at Gao Pinxi, whose light brown eyes were as clear and charming as spring water. Gao Pinxi couldn't help but be taken aback for a moment. What was wrong with him? His heartbeat quickened unconsciously. Faced with her inquiry, he found an excuse for himself unintentionally, but found that he, who had always been good at using flowery language, was cramped in front of her like a young man who had been poked into his heart. Yi Yisin looked at Gao Pinxi's deep eyes and realized that she had overslept. She turned around and asked him, looking down a bit embarrassed. I don't know I'm home, she said. Oh, Gao Pinxi regained his senses and looked ahead. I just arrived, I just wanted to wake you up. Gao Pinxi sighed inwardly. What's wrong with him? I waited for more than 10 minutes just to see her for a while longer. Thank you tonight. Yi Yisin looked at Gao Pinxi's profile under the street lamp, as handsome as a sculpture. If it weren't for the already occupied heart, it would have been difficult not to be moved, right? Yi Yisin finally understood why Xinrui would say that although falling in love with him had no results, the process was very beautiful. Yi Yisin. I'll go back first. Yi Yisin stood at the door, but Gao Pinxi had not left yet. Yi Yisin walked up to the car and said, Pinxi, what's wrong? I feel more at ease watching you enter. Gao Pinxi leaned against the car window and looked up at Yi Yisin. I'm at the doorstep. Yi Yisin couldn't help but laugh. I'll have to watch you go in, too. Gao Pinxi looked at her smile and couldn't help but raise his lips. Okay then. Drive slowly when you go back. Yi Yisin can only go home first. Gao Pinxi looked at Yi Yisin's back and still couldn't bear to leave. Yi family. Your mother didn't come back with you. Yi Kaihuai put down the newspaper in his hand, looking a little anxious. Mom hasn't come back yet. Yi Yisin looked around the living room, but shouldn't Xin go home after dinner? Yi Kaihuai put down the newspaper, picked up the car key, and immediately called Xin. Yi Yisin followed closely, watching Yi Kaihuai's heavy expression, but he couldn't bear to let Xin suffer any injustice. It's already past 10 o'clock, and Xin is still alone outside. Yi Kaihuai can't rest assured. Ding 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 Pikachu, this familiar phone ringtone. I'm here. Xin walked in with a big and small bag. Yisin, was that Pinxi's car just now? Xin asked curiously as she handed it to Yi Kaihuai. Mom, where have you been? Xin followed her on a date with Gao Pinxi tonight, didn't she? Why is it like going shopping? Yi Yisin was stunned and talked about getting married on her first date. Xin's boundless imagination really made Yi Yisin unable to accept it. Chapter 8. How long does it take to forget someone? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Mr. Gao. Yi Yilan watched as Gao Pinxi arrived alone, without seeing Yi Yisin's figure. It is believed that Yi Yisin did not tell Gao Pinxi about the attendance. Gao Pinxi nodded slightly, still observing Qin Qi as his partner. Yi Yisin. Where are you? Upon receiving Yi Yilan's phone call, she angrily asked Yi Yisin to take her phone away. Yi Yisin rubbed her ears and said, We're almost there. But. Sister, the dress is left at home and there's no time to change it, Yi Yisin said apologetically. Yi Yilan was very helpless. Fortunately, she had anticipated Plan B and said, You come straight over, I'll choose a spare one for you. As expected, no one knew Yi Yisin like Yi Yilan. Yi Yisin parked her car in the garage and went straight to her sister's changing room. Yi Yisin walked too quickly and didn't see the oncoming Yin Junlei. She bumped into Yin Junlai's arms and couldn't stand steadily. Yin Junlei pulled Yi Yisin into his arms, and the familiar scent didn't even notice Yin Junlei. Yi Yisin knew it was him. Be careful. Still spoke in such a gentle tone. Yin Junlei supported Yi Yisin. Before Yi Yisin could even look up, Gao Pinxi pulled her behind her and said, Thank you. Gao Pinxi pulled Yi Yisin away. Gao Pinxi brought Yi Yisin to the garden, but Yi Yisin didn't have time to think. Gao Pinxi looked down at her and said, Why is it in his arms? In my arms. Just now, there was a minute when she was in his arms. 3 years have passed, and she was even pulled away by Gao Pinxi before she even saw him. I don't know. I just want to change into a formal dress. Yi Yisin looked at Gao Pinxi, her sword eyebrows furrowed slightly. He was angry. Gao Pinxi realized his mistake and said, "Don't you dislike this kind of banquet?" "It's because he attended. And since you're participating, why don't you tell him?" I just. My sister said she hopes to participate with you." "Beauty trick." Gao Pinxi looked at Yi Yisin. "Are there any late beauties?" Yi Yisin looked at her sportswear and indeed, she disrupted her sister's plan. Yi Yisin looked at Gao Pinxi awkwardly and said, "Perhaps I'm creating a chance encounter. This kind of appearance is like the female lead in a movie falling into the male lead's arms, and then the male lead smirked. Is it really a different girl?" Gao Pinxi was amused and looked at Yi Yisin's sincere gaze. If she had appeared out of nowhere, it would have been more heartfelt. Yi Yisin turned around to look for Yin Junlei and found that he had already left. It has been 3 years now, and she still habitually searches for his figure in the crowd. Do you still remember back then, when she was the matchmaker and Yin Junlei became the spokesperson for his brother-in-law's family mall? Yisin. Gao Pinxi looked at Yi Yisin in a daze, her gaze never stopping at him. Do you still want to attend the banquet? Yi Yisin wanted to breathe some air. Presumably, for Yi Yilan, Yi Yisin's biggest task is to entertain Gao Pinxi well. Gao Pinxi shook his head. Let's go then. I'm so hungry. Yi Yisin hasn't eaten anything since noon. Let's go. What do you want to eat? Gao Pinxi took Yi Yisin's hand and walked towards the garage. Yin Junlei watched as Yi Yisin and Gao Pinxi left. From the moment you give up on Yisin, you have no right to approach her again. Yi Yilan stood behind Yin Junlei. I don't know what Miss Yi is talking about. Yin Junlei prepared to leave. Whether you know or not, since you have made a choice, you must walk down without looking back. Yi Yilan looked at Yin Junlei. She found the right person for her, and you also had your own career, so you all found the most suitable position for yourself, didn't you? Yin Junlei left without looking back. 3 years ago, I chose it. Chapter 9. How long does it take to fall in love with someone? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Gao Pinxi brought Yi Yisin to a restaurant under the Gao Group, overlooking the entire Gao paradise. Yi Yisin's thoughts are still on Yin Junlei. He just helped himself, right? Yi Yisin lowered her eyes and played with the food, but at the last moment, she suppressed her unrealistic fantasies. It has been 3 years now, and she can't help but fantasize about the possibility between herself and him. Gao Pinxi noticed Yi Yisin's distraction, but he didn't know how to interrupt her. The story of Yi Yisin and Yin Junlei was unknown to everyone 3 years ago. Not to my taste. Gao Pinxi didn't know where his anger came from. Well. Yi Yisin realized her own loss of composure. No. You've been tinkering with those noodles for 10 minutes. Yi Yisin immediately ate the noodles, but was choked on. Are you okay? Gao Pinxi patted her shoulder, and Yi Yisin picked up the red wine and drank it all in one gulp. It was too late for Gao Pinxi to stop. Sorry, Yi Yisin rubbed her throat, but felt a bit dizzy. What was she drinking just now? Gao Pinxi looked at her face with a blush and said, Aren't you not allowed to drink? Ah. Yi Yisin's eyes blurred for a moment. Mr. Gao. Yi Yisin suddenly lay on the table, and Gao Pinxi leaned over to look at her with some concern. Yi Yisin suddenly lifted her head and looked at Gao Pinxi. Mr. Gao, do you think I'm beautiful? Gao Pinxi looked at her with her eyes slightly closed, her thick eyelashes casting shadows on her face, her pure and watery eyes reflecting Gao Pinxi's outline, and her fair skin tinged with a faint blush. Gao Pinxi was momentarily stunned, but Yi Yisin suddenly stood up and approached him, saying, I'll tell you. I think I saw Junlei. Gao Pinxi's heart pounded as if he had found the key to disturbing the heartstrings at night. Actually, I know he doesn't love me. But falling in love with someone only takes a moment. How long does it take to forget someone? 1 year. 2 years. 3 years, I tell you, 3 years is not enough. 3 years is not enough at all. Yi Yisin's tears fell down. 3 years have passed. I am still used to searching for his messages and thinking of him habitually. Gao Pinxi handed the tissue to Yi Yisin, but Yi Yisin picked up her wine glass and said, "There's still wine." Gao Pinxi wanted to snatch the wine glass away, but Yi Yisin couldn't stand steadily. Gao Pinxi hugged her waist and poured the entire glass of red wine onto Yi Yisin and Gao Pinxi. But Yi Yisin fell asleep in the arms of Gao Pinxi. Yisin. Gao Pinxi could only help Yi Yisin to the suite in the top-floor office. Gao Pinxi carried Princess Yi Yisin to the room, took off her coat soaked in red wine, and then stood up to take a shower. After taking a shower, Gao Pinxi saw Yi Yisin sleeping soundly on the bed and couldn't bear to wake her up. He picked up his computer and searched for Yin Junlei and Yi Yisin. In a recent news report, Yin Junlei denied dating Yi Yisin and only had one girlfriend, who is a fan. However, the news is accompanied by a video of Yi Yisin and her fan students arguing logically, with comments all mocking Yi Yisin's self-indulgence. Gao Pinxi looked at Yi Yisin. What was her state of mind 3 years ago, and why is she still in love with Yin Junlei to this day, even signing a love contract for him and herself on a blind date? Gao Pinxi couldn't understand her. "Do you know who I am?" Gao Pinxi asked Yi Yisin to lean on his shoulder. "I know you're not him." "I know. He won't be with me, he hasn't been with me." Yi Yisin's tears streamed down her face. "What are you holding on to?" Gao Pinxi felt a little heartbroken, puzzled, and even a hint of jealousy. "I'm used to it. I'm used to waiting, I'm used to thinking about him, I'm just used to it." Accustoming to 2 words is so simple, yet so helpless. Chapter 10. He definitely isn't as handsome as me. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yisin. I'm back. Jean Chier's voice was so loud that even Gao Pinxi could hear it clearly. Where are you? Aren't you coming back next week? I have something important. Where are you? I'll go find you right away. Jean Chier, Gao Pinxi deliberately interjected. Is this voice? Jean Chier's voice noticeably decreased by a few decibels. Yisin, did I hear it right? It's a bit like Gao Pinxi's voice. I didn't expect you to remember my voice, said Gao Pinxi as he approached his phone. Yisin. Is it really Gao Pinxi? Give him the phone quickly. Jean Chier couldn't help but feel excited. She was still thinking about how to reminisce with Gao Pinxi when she returned to China, but she didn't expect Gao Pinxi to be by Yi Yisin's side. Yi Yisin obediently gave the phone to Gao Pinxi. Jean Chier, long time no see, said Gao Pinxi lazily. Is Mr. Gao, the most handsome CEO in the world, Kiki from your group? Yes. What's wrong? Gao Pinxi felt something was wrong. So you must know Xian Ting very well, right? Can you give me all his information? Jean Chier couldn't contain her excitement, and it took no effort to get it. No, Gao Pinxi sternly refused Jean Chier. Why? Jean Chier was a bit angry. Yisin and I are going to have breakfast, goodbye. Gao Pinxi hung up the phone and gave Yisin her phone. Who is Xian Hao? Yi Yisin was a bit curious and searched for information about Xian Hao. Gao Pinxi was a bit jealous, and Jean Chier's phone call came back. Yisin, how can you make him hang up on my phone? Also, how can you be with him? You. Before Yi Yisin could tell Jean Chier about the contract, she felt embarrassed to reply in front of Gao Pinxi and could only whisper, Where are you? I'll talk to you slowly. I'm almost at your house. Okay, I'll be back soon, said Yi Yisin as she stood up and prepared to leave. Wait, can we call Gao Pinxi? Yi Yisin was a bit speechless. She had intended to take this opportunity to leave quickly, but could only look at Gao Pinxi and ask for his opinion. hoping that he could refuse as decisively as he had just hung up the phone. "Okay, I'll take her back," said Gao Pinxi on the phone. Yi Yisin could only pick up her coat and go home with Gao Pinxi. What kind of person is Xian Ting? Yi Yisin was a bit curious about what kind of person made Jean Chia return to China early. How to evaluate it? Gao Pinxi was a bit jealous. Yi Yisin didn't know how to ask. The 5 aspects of virtue: ability, diligence, and integrity. Yi Yisin was amused and said, "Are you in the assessment?" Humility and gentleness, treating people with courtesy. Outstanding ability, outstanding and outstanding. Burning plaster and following a sundial, forgetting sleep and food. Outstanding, achieving remarkable results. In terms of integrity, he is not lacking in money at all. Why don't we continue to use idioms in terms of integrity? Being fair and selfless, there is nothing left on the road. After speaking, Gao Pinxi looked at Yi Yisin's smiling face, which was like a flower, and his mood was also very relaxed. I really want to see him. Yi Yisin became even more curious. Stopping at a red light, Gao Pinxi looked at Yi Yisin seriously and said, "But he's not as handsome as me." Yi Yisin looked at his dark brown eyes and couldn't help but laugh. Someone who can make Mr. Gao feel a sense of crisis must be very handsome. Gao Pinxi didn't understand her brain circuits. What he said was true, and Gao Pinxi couldn't help but compare his appearance with that of Xian Gui in his mind. He was still more handsome. Yi Yisin knew immediately when she saw Xian. She will definitely feel more handsome. Should I know? Perhaps so. Perhaps. Her vision is different.